We got our first one. Now the kids kind of flock to our house just to play on the trampoline.
Take off the blindfold?
Oh my gosh, a trampoline!
They play so many different games on the trampoline and they jump on it. They'll put a sprinkler underneath it on hot days and jump. We have 2 kids. We've got a 9-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son.
The age gap makes it hard for them to do things together, but on Springfree, they can play together.
Yeah,
they can have fun together.
We were in the backyard of our house and sitting around the campfire. We heard kind of a loud noise. As I rounded the corner and walked up to the front yard, it took a second to register, but there was actually a mid-size SUV sitting perfectly inside the trampoline. The vehicle rolled from the brown house back there and went through the fence and then came to rest perfectly right in the middle here. I contacted my neighbor and he of course told me that he forgot to set the emergency brake.
So Springfree saved his car.
And our house.
And our house. For our youngest, I think that she was a little bit dumbfounded and a little disappointed. I mean, seeing a car on her trampoline, her main source of play.
We were shocked,
Yeah.
you know?
And my son immediately taking pictures and putting it on Instagram because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it hit social media pretty quick. 2 or 3 of my friends had said, hey, you should share that with the company. I took the pictures that were on my phone and drafted a quick email. Gosh, it wasn't but I think 2 hours later that I got an email back. They turned around and wanted to get involved.
Today we're coming out here to take down this trampoline that a truck fell into, and then we're going to rebuild them in 8x13 092, one of our very popular oval models. So the only real little damage to the mat is just a little tear in it from the Xterra.
It seems that the art of customer service is a little bit lost these days. I was so excited to get to talk to a company that care, you know? They wanted to know about us and our family and our situation, and I was amazed at their customer service and just what a great corporation it really is. I mean, we're honored to have their product in our yard.
With our customers, we're with them for a lifetime. We sell them a product and we stick with them. We take care of our customers.
Our kids are going to be so excited to come home from school today and see that there's a new trampoline.
Well, not even just our kids, but the kids in the neighborhood. Like,
yeah.
They've been so disappointed to see that they couldn't jump on this trampoline anymore. Yeah. Well, guess what? Look at that.
Oh my gosh! It's so cool. And it's got a basketball hoop and a ball and a ladder and stuff.
George Nissen built the first trampoline in the 1930s, and since then there's really been no change to the basic configuration. This is the first time really that someone has redesigned it from the ground up and looked at a way of getting rid of some of the main impact points in a conventional trampoline. The design of the Springfree trampoline is quite a lot more complicated than the design of a conventional trampoline. The composite rods, for example, need to have a long fatigue life. Now, normally this composite material doesn't have to be bent as frequently as it is in a trampoline, but in this case, we've had to have the special recipe developed so that they will last the distance. So, the difference between a Springfree trampoline and a traditional trampoline? Well, a Springfree is a huge leap forward in terms of engineering design. Our engineering team are highly qualified professional engineers, and they've got a wide range of experience. Our quality control processes are probably the most important thing. If you don't have good quality ingredients in your recipe, then you're not going to get a good quality product out the other end. You really have to build a culture that says quality is more important than getting finished product out the door fast. So we're not just a bunch of guys making trampolines. We've got a strong research and development team. We've got experienced professional design engineers and an excellent manufacturing facility. And all of these are contributing to a world-class product. I'm Dr. Keith Alexander. I'm the inventor of the Springfree trampoline. I've always believed that as an engineer I should be doing things that benefit people.
This is the granddaddy of all trampolines. This is both for kids and adults. I love this trampoline. Safety is number one.
Christchurch man Keith Alexander has just won a major Product of the Year award in the United States.
Kind of cool without the danger.
Well, I'm quite proud that Springfree as a company is leading in this respect.
There's no springs and there's no hard metal frame.
This will have you jumping for joy. Literally, Springfree Trampoline is the best trampoline for safety, fun, and fitness for the entire family.
It's these types of trampolines that are letting kids have more fun without the risk of getting injured.
It's a company that has bought into a vision of keeping children safer. So the rods in a Springfree trampoline are one of the unique features of it. They take the place of the springs. It's best to imagine them like fishing rods. Fishing rods are quite bendy. Springfree trampoline rods are also bendy. They're a lot stiffer than most fishing rods. They're made of fiberglass, what's called pull-truded fiberglass. That is, it's been stretched in one direction so that all the fibers of the fiberglass stretch along the length of the rods. So you're using the rods stuck in the socket in the frame and bending it towards the center of the trampoline, and that gives the mat its tension. So one of the unique things about the Springfree trampoline is that the frame is positioned away below the mat surface. That means that the person jumping on it, they can't reach the frame however hard they try. So that steel frame is well clear of where the children are jumping. The frame is made of tubular steel, and the sockets and those parts are each measured carefully and shaped and welded together. Once they're welded together, they're all measured, they're pre-treated, washed, dried, powder coated, 2 coats of powder coating. Then they're checked to make sure that the powder coating is there, and anywhere else that's not powder coated that should be is touched up. Finally, they put a wax coating on the inside where the powder coating hasn't been able to get, and that stops any corrosion on the inside. That's way beyond what any other trampoline manufacturer does with the frame. The Springfree trampoline mat is a polypropylene material that's used on all trampolines, all domestic trampolines. It goes through quite a rigorous process of calendaring, and its standard of UV resistance is it passes a test of a 5,000 hour test, which is one of the most rigorous tests that they ever do on materials. What usually fails on trampolines is not so much the mat material. It usually lasts about 10 years, but it tends to be the stitching that fails. Now, the stitching tends to fail for 2 reasons. One is because the stitching itself doesn't have the UV resistance that the mat does, and the stitching is often exposed so that it gets a lot of wear with people rubbing on it and bouncing on it. On the Springfree trampoline, the stitching is actually covered over by some of the yellow webbing, and what that does is it protects it first of all from the UV light itself, so that it lasts longer even though it is under UV light, and secondly it protects it from abrasion from people jumping on it. Right beside the edge of a conventional trampoline you've got the springs and you've got the frame. With the Springfree trampoline, those are taken right out of the way. When someone falls onto the edge, the energy of their fall, if you like, is absorbed by the pull-truded fiberglass rods underneath. In other words, they just bend under the load of the impact and absorb the energy. So rather than the energy going into hurting somebody's head, it goes into bending the fiberglass rods. Well, the features of the net that I like to talk about is the size of the weave and the ultraviolet resistance and the flexibility of the net. We've chosen to go with a very fine weave. It's called a no-climb net, so you can't get your fingers in it. As a result of that, you can't get broken fingers in there. The UV resistance of it is much the same as the UV resistance of the trampoline mat. That is, it will survive a UV test for thousands of hours. When we started out, the flexibility wasn't something that we were thinking of. But when we looked at steel enclosure poles as an option, we got to the point of thinking that this is not really as safe as we could do it. So we began thinking about using the same sorts of pull-truded fiberglass rods that we had as to support the mat of the trampoline. And at first we felt that they were going to be far too flexible, but once we'd assembled enough of them on the trampoline and then put the net on as well, we found that the whole structure was able to support the loads that we wanted.
Springfree Trampoline is designed for harsh conditions. Through rainstorms and the hammering of a hailstorm to a persistent snowstorm. Springfree trampolines are built to last.
Thanks for selecting the video. It looks like you're about to install the frame. The steps in your installation instructions for this is steps 1, 2 and 3. What we do first is we stage it, which really means that we lay it out on a flat surface so that we can check that we've got all the parts. Another thing about staging the trampoline is it gives you a good idea of what size it is and you can see where you're going to put it. It's important to follow the printed instructions. Your frame will have different coloured dots depending on which model you have. Round trampolines will have blue dots, and if you have an oval or square trampoline, you will have both blue and green dots. Put the frame together as shown in step 3 in your installation instructions. Once you've put the frame together, you're ready to attach the legs. The first thing to do when you're putting the legs on is you have one person on the inside of the frame and they lift up the frame. The other person's on the outside and they put the centre post into the leg with the coloured dot to the outside, and then they lift that leg up into the leg sockets on the frame. To ensure that the legs are facing the right way, you'll want to check that the coloured stickers are to the outside in each case. So when you've put the leg on, you need to put in the bolts. You put them in and tighten them by hand, and then you'll need the Allen key for one side and the wrench for the other side. Use the tools provided. You don't need to apply a lot of force. Don't use any power tools. You don't need to over tighten the bolts. If your model is an oval model, it's one that's got straight sections along the sides. It's got different legs that go on the ends. So you need to distinguish between them. And the way you do that is you just look at the colour stickers on there, follow the stickers, and they'll show you what you have to do. When you're putting the legs on, there's a preferred order that you should put them on, and step 3 in your instructions will tell you which order that is. Now that the frame's together, it's time to move on to the next step. Looks like you're about to position your net. That's step 5 in your installation instructions. So the first thing to do is to figure out where you put your first rod. Now this is one of the most complicated parts of the whole assembly, although it's actually very simple. What you need to do is find the coloured tag on the bottom of the net. That's the strip that has the buttonholes in it. Once you've done that, then you take the coloured tag that's on the bottom of the net and you put it beside the same coloured sticker on the frame. Keeping the tag in the same position, place the rest of the net inside the frame. Don't let go of the coloured tag while you do this. Lift up the edge of the net that you're holding and step backwards. The net needs to be draped over the frame in a ring shape as shown here. Once you've done that, then you take the coloured tag that's on the bottom of the net and you put it beside the same coloured sticker on the frame. You take the white mat rod, you put it through the hole which is on the left of the coloured tag on the net, and you put it into the socket which is right beside the coloured sticker on the frame. Then you've done the most complicated part of the trampoline assembly. So once you've inserted your first rod, you move one place to the right, you find the buttonhole and insert the next white mat rod through the next buttonhole and into the next socket on the frame. And then you continue with the next one and the next one and the next one. That way, as you continue around the trampoline, you'll assemble the net onto the trampoline in the right order. Just make sure that you don't miss a hole, because if you miss a hole, you're going to have to undo it and go back and do it all again.
As you go further and further around, the net is likely to get quite tight. Sometimes it gets too tight for you to be able to get the rods in, and you'll just have to find if it's caught up somewhere. But you should expect it to be tight even if it's not snagged. Once you've got all the rods in, you're done positioning the net, and then it's on to the next step. So I see it's now time to install the mat, which is steps 6 and 7 in your installation instructions. So to find the first rod position, you need to look for the blue tag on the mat and match that with the blue sticker on the frame. People generally find installing the mat rods is quite difficult, but there is a technique that makes it a bit easier. What you do is you get two people. One person is on the inside and the other one is on the outside. If you're the outside person, step up to the trampoline with your palm facing upwards. Take hold of the white mat rod, put your elbow into your hip, put your right foot forward, and then use your hip to push your elbow, and it's much stronger than your arm, so it gives you the strength you need to push the mat rod inwards. The person underneath takes hold of one of the rods and pulls it in towards the center of the trampoline, while the person on the outside grabs hold of the end by the ball and guides it into the mat rod holder. The inside person should visually confirm that the black ball is in the holder before either person lets go of the rod. A lot of this technique is not about how strong you are, but about using your body weight in the right way and using your hip and legs to apply the force rather than using your arms. What you're intending to do is to push it in towards the center of the trampoline, lift it up against the trampoline mat, then let it come back, moving your hips backwards so that it clicks into the mat rod holder. The mat rod holder may have moved in its pocket, so check that its tag is outside the pocket before trying to insert the rod into it. Always grab the rod with your palm up, so grab it from underneath. Remember that once you've loaded it, it has got a lot of energy in it and you don't want your face anywhere near it, so always keep your face on a different level than the end of the rod. Removing a rod is really the reverse of putting a rod in place. You need to put your palm up, take hold of the rod, put your elbow into your hip and push with your hip. As you're pushing in towards the center of the trampoline, you need to lift the rod upwards so that it can go over the edge of the mat rod holder and be released. Once it releases, you push it towards the center of the trampoline, lower it down and keep hold of it as you step back. It's important not to twist or rotate the mat when removing the rods. This is likely to damage the mat rod holders and be a safety hazard. So once you've assembled all the rods, you want to check that they're properly seated. One way of doing this is to go around the edge of the trampoline, pressing down heavily on the edge as you go, and that'll make any of them that might be not seated properly, it'll ensure that they're properly seated. It may push any of them that are not quite firmly in the frame, may push them down into the frame as well. Congratulations, you've installed the mat. But before you start jumping, the next thing to do is to raise the net. So here we are, it's the final step, raising the net. Steps 9 and 10 in your installation instructions. So first off, we need to pull the net up over the edge of the mat and lay it out in the middle of the mat. This takes a little bit of work because you have to go around several times sliding it up the rods. As you do this, you can expect that it's quite tight and you have to be pretty careful that it doesn't catch on anything. So as you go, make sure that it's not caught on the bolts. So now we're ready to put the black net rods together. To do this, you pick them up and unfold them so they're one long piece, and then slide the connector down over the two aluminium pieces to make it one long rod altogether. To put the net rods into the pocket on the top of the net, you have to find the pockets, which are in the middle of the trampoline. Slide the ball through the loop below the pocket, then slide the ball right up into the pocket, and then make sure you push it right home. It will pop right home past the catch, so that it's unlikely to come out while you're using it. Once you've got all the rods into the pockets on the net, you take one of them, pick it up near the base, bend it, and put the base gently into the socket on the frame, making sure as you do it that you push it past the C-clip. The C-clip is what locks it into place. Ideally, you do this with two people, one person at each end, and you go around installing each subsequent rod one by one until all of the rods are up. So if any stage you need to take one of the enclosure rods out, or you want to take it down for disassembly, first thing to do is to take the white plastic C-clip from the bottom of the socket underneath the frame. Then you grab hold of the black net rod and lean back, holding the bottom of it so that it doesn't flick back and hurt you, and pull it out of the socket at the bottom of the frame. Congratulations, you've finished your trampoline. But before you start jumping, read those warnings in your user guide. Enjoy your Springfree trampoline.